Hello everyone, this is Fraction Tiles Part 2. Welcome back. I want to remind us of our math goal for this project. I want to be able to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. And of course, to do that, we have to replace given fractions with the equivalent fractions. And we're making this visual so that our user will be able to see, based on what tiles they spread out here, what tiles they need, what fractions are equivalent to whatever it is that is needed. So we have this set up so far. We have an add tile button, we have a change fraction button, and we have our actual fraction tile actor. And the most recent thing we did was we created costumes for a variety of different fractions that our user might need. So now what we need to do, when the user presses this add tile button and the fraction tile is cloned, we need to set this up so that that clone will appear according to whatever fraction the user is looking for. So let's go to our fraction tile actor, and if we go up to events, there should be an event that says clone startup. So every time this clone is created, every time that the user presses this add tile button and it receives this message, the clone is created, it's going to do whatever it says here. So one thing definitely that we want to have happen, we want to switch the costume of the clone that's being created. So let's go to looks, and then let's take this block right at the top here, it says switch to costume. And then remember, when we named these costumes, we named them according to the label, according to those choices that the user had in the change fraction message. So it's going to be really simple here. All we have to do is go to variables, and we're going to find that same global variable that we used before. So now when the user, let's say they press the play button and the change fraction is clicked and they select something, now when the user presses the add tile, that's the costume that's going to appear. And as of right now, it doesn't have a label, so let's give these a label. So again, let's go to looks, and we're going to scroll down past all the say stuff and the think stuff to where it says set label, and we can set the label to that exact same thing. So let's go back to variables, let's get that frac label variable. Now when we run this and the user presses the add fraction, the label should appear, but it's really tiny. So let's go back, and we are going to need to edit the font of that label. And one way we could do that, on the bottom of our menus, if we select this plus with more and we enable the pen, so click on pen so that lights up, we can close that. And now if we go to our pen menu, we should see, if we scroll down under text, there's one that says set font. So every time the clone starts up, we're going to have the font set, and I think by default this is what we were seeing, 18, which is really tiny. Let's make this bigger. Let's set this to something like 48, and then let's try this again. I'm going to press the play button, I'm going to add a tile, so now we can see the font is much bigger. And I think it depends on the size of the fraction tile you created, but if you want to change the size of it, all you have to do is change this number for the set font. Okay, and now I think we don't want to keep seeing the original here. We want that original to disappear. So let's go to events, and let's find the event that says on start. And then if we go back to our looks, if we scroll to the very bottom of our, or not the very bottom, towards the bottom, we have a block that says hide. And of course, if we are going to hide this at the very beginning, we definitely want to show it when that clone starts up. So let's grab our show block and put that at the very end under the clone startup. So now let's run this. So notice that on startup, this fraction tile is hidden, but then when the user hits the add tile, it appears. And the user at this point should be able to change the fraction and then add a tile, and the basic functionality is there. So let's create some labels for our add tile button and for our change fraction button. And there's different ways that we could do this. In the example, I had just set the label of the add tile to whatever fraction the user selects. So in order to do it that way, we could just, well, a couple things. So on start, by default, it's 1, and we could set that label. So if the user were to click the add tile, that would automatically appear. Or we could, let's see, when this actor, actually let's go back to our add tile. Yeah, so we could set it immediately. Let's do that. So if we go to our label, got to scroll up a little bit under looks. So when the actor is clicked, and I think, so not here, but when the user runs a program, we want to give them some kind of a label to begin with. So on start, we're going to set that label to our fraction label, and then we want to, so I'm going to press play and you'll kind of see what happens here. Again, it's tiny. You can barely see it. So we're going to have to go down to our pen and we're going to have to set the font. And we'll change that to 48, see how that goes. Okay, so that's better. So when our user then presses the change fraction button, we want our label to change with it. So if we go back to our change fraction, we are going to have to, like we've done here, we broadcast a new label. So we can reuse that same message that was already broadcast. So let's go to event, and we can go up to the top when I receive, and then let's find that new label. We want to basically copy this, so we can click on this and we can copy, we can paste, Control C, Control V if you prefer. So now every time that this changes, we should see it update here. And that's what we want. Okay, and next thing, we want to give our change fraction button a label. And I think on the example, all that our change fraction button said was change fraction. So we could do that here as well. So let's go to our change fraction button, and we want to go to looks, and then we want to find that same thing. It says set label, and we'll just set this on the start, because if this one doesn't change, then all we have to do is set it once, and we're just going to put change fraction. And if there's some other way that you want to label these, that's fine too. There's probably a better way to do this. But again, the font is tiny there, so we want to go to our pen, and then we want to get our text settings, same ones we had before. And we could do 48 or something larger so it's more visible. But here, notice it's all kind of on one line, and it looks like it might be too big. So in order to get a separate line, we're going to use a separate line, not exactly character, but if you select the backslash on the keyboard, so that's kind of should be right underneath delete or right above enter, the backslash and the letter N. This is our line break character, and let's see if this works. So notice now we have those two words on separate lines because we used the line break character, but it looks like the font is a little bit too big, so we just need something that fits there, and it's still a little bit too big, so I'm going to go even smaller. And that's fine. I mean, when we look at it full screen, you're able to read this is 1, this is change fraction. So I think at this point, let's just try this out, see if this works. So hit the play button, and if the user presses the add fraction, we get the fraction there. If the user presses change fraction, that value changes. It looks like my font might be a little bit too big, so I can make that smaller just to make sure that everything appears. But our basic functionality is here at this point. So if you're all caught up and everything's working for you, there is a lot that you can do to make this more interesting. You can definitely add some functionality. You could definitely do some things to make this look nicer, especially with the labels, because it's not that clear to the user at this point that this is a button. So you could make these two things look more like buttons. You could even give the button some kind of animation. There's a way to do that. And this one, it just says a 1. It doesn't say anything about adding a fraction tile. So maybe there's a way you could put that wording, if not on the button itself, maybe, you know, somewhere around the button. But that's all up to you. Make sure that you save this, and if you're going to do anything, you know, really different or anything kind of risky, you could always save this as a copy. That way you'll have the original functionality in case you need to get back to it. But at this point, you know, it's all yours. Thank you.